at the same time, you know, this is another interesting story with regards to him, and I appreciate him coming out with this.
It too, just for the record.
Okay, we'll get into the details. So put this up on the screen. Vivek is accusing Newsmax of basically telling him he needs to pay in order to get coverage on the network. Now, this is pretty wild because, listen, candidates aren't stupid. They probably all suspect that maybe they'll get more favorable coverage on any of these news networks or conservative outlets or whatever if they pay for advertising on those networks. But according to Vivek, Chris Ruddy, who runs the network, just outright, like, bluntly told him if he wants better coverage, then he can pay for advertising. And part of why this is so believable is because you all may not even know, there's this Republican businessman named Perry Johnson who is running for president. And apparently he pays for a lot of ads on Newsmax. And Newsmax has, like, gone all in for this guy in terms of his coverage. He's on their airwaves all the time. They're doing some, like, documentary series about his campaign. They have all of these, like, Perry Johnson puff pieces. Oh, and lo and behold, it just so happens that he's spending a lot of advertising dollars on the network. So that context, I think, makes the Ramaswamy claim here very believable.
Oh, 150%. And in fact, as Ben Smith, whose outlet Semaphore actually originally reported this, almost immediately after the allegation came out, there was a hit piece against Ramaswamy actually on the network.
That's
where
funny.
they were like, oh, interesting. And they specifically were doing segments about Vivek Ramaswamy and when she said that he would cut aid to Israel. So I'll read you directly what they say. Quote, Vivek's comments put him in the same ballpark as those radical progressives who do not think that the state of Israel should exist. Those, by the way, are comments based on him saying that we shouldn't treat Israel special like everybody else. And by cutting aid, he means just normalizing it to everybody else. Yeah. Apparently a radical idea.
Radical idea.
Who is out there. And I will say, look, on that one in particular, I think that takes a hell of a lot of courage in a Republican debate. That's actual America First principle, if you're thinking about it ideologically consistently, something that I would support. I think it also is a direct signal to a lot of the donor class who's obsessed with Israel that he's like, no, I'm not going to be taking orders from you. I mean, this is one of those benefits of being independently wealthy.
True.
And
Yeah,
it's a direct contrast with Ron DeSantis because his constant attack against Ron is you are a donor-controlled actual machine. And I mean, look, let's think about the main thing that DeSantis walked back in the all of his controversy. He didn't necessarily, he kind of walked away from Disney because he said, quote, I've moved on from that after he took a lot of heat for it. I think that was both ideological, but a lot of it was donor driven. But Ukraine to me was the big departure point.
Yeah.
He said something marginally towards the restrictionist side of foreign policy whenever it came to his Ukraine comments, and then got flayed by the billionaires of the world, and he walked it back. I mean, that was a real weak moment for him. Vivek, to his credit, has always been pretty consistent whenever it came to aid to Ukraine and about how this isn't in America's national interest, and pretty ideologically consistent on this issue. So if you look at that within that realm, the Israel comments now being the vector of attack on Newsmax, I just think it's ridiculous. Also not a surprise. Who's the only other candidate who criticized Vivek for this? Nikki Haley.
Another
shocker, just an absolute shocker.
Another person, donor creation,
and probably backed by more neocon billionaires than any other person in the race right now. So I think that it is almost 100% true. The Perry Johnson critique is so obvious considering how many how many ads the man has bought. The funniest thing is he claimed he'd qualify for the debate, and we've now learned he actually hasn't qualified for the debate. So he didn't even spend his money correctly, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe he's got to keep doing it if he wants to rack it up. But and to be clear, for the lawyers, Newsmax denies it. Chris Ruddy and them say it's absolutely not true. Everybody claims there's like a Chinese firewall and all of that. But listen, it's business. When your revenue is based on advertising dollars, well, who pays you and who doesn't? At the very least, it's probably going to impact you. And specifically Newsmax, their entire thing, they're not raking in the same level of cable carriage fees that Fox News and all those other media organizations are. They're probably even a hell of a lot more reliant on advertising dollars than any of their other competitors. So it only makes it even more believable in terms of this accusation.
Well, and Ben Smith had previously profiled Chris Ruddy and said basically like, this is the most shameless operator I have ever encountered in media, which is saying something because Ben has encountered a lot of shameless operators during his time. So, again, that's part of what makes it believable. And I just want to say about Newsmax, I mean, they've positioned position themselves for a right-leaning or right-wing audience as like the real truth tellers, you know, who are going to give it to you straight, et cetera. And I think you can just see in all of these allegations how sort of shameless they are and how all of their positioning, all of their so-called truth-telling is really just about trying to make money off of, you know, a particular audience and serving them what they want to hear. To me, that's part of what really comes out here. And then the other piece is, again, it's not that the other networks probably don't do some of the same in a slightly more, you know, nuanced and deniable way. But the fact that it's just so blatant and brazen is really something. Like going all in for Perry Johnson when he is buying so many ads on your network just makes it all pretty blatant and amazing. The last thing I want to say about the debates, and again, we'll be doing a whole special on this, so we'll save some of our thoughts for there, but it's going to be interesting to me, Saagar, how much wokeness comes up. Because DeSantis really launched his campaign like Florida's where woke goes to die. And Vivek, what was the name of it? Woke Inc. was the name of his book that really catapulted him into, like, you know, conservative media, et cetera, what started to get him the Daily Wire deal potentially. And a whole rash of polling has come out showing that, yeah, Republicans are like concerned about it, but this is far from their top issue. It does not seem to have really landed, even with the Republican base, in terms of being an issue that vaults people to the front. Vivek seems to be using that language less. DeSantis seems to be using that language less. So I'm interested to see how much that comes up on the debate stage and how much they've sort of internalized, like, this might not really be the thing in the Republican primary.
I'm curious to see. Yeah, like I said, we'll save our thoughts for the special. Again, you can sign up if you want to take a look at that. It's going to be fun. It's going to be all over our public channels tomorrow.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.